Energy Espresso stands as a captivating gateway, merging the pulsating world of energy innovations with the deeply ingrained culture of coffee. Every episode serves as a fresh brew of ideas, featuring thought-provoking discussions on the latest in energy technologies, sustainability efforts, and the global transition towards greener alternatives. We invite energy experts, innovators, and thought leaders to share their insights and visions for a sustainable future. Energy Espresso is more than just a podcast. It's a community for those passionate about making a difference and those eager to learn more about the energy that powers our world and the coffee that fuels our days. So, join us on this journey and let's discover together the fascinating intersection of energy solutions and coffee culture, one episode at a time. The Energy Espresso podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors. Power is complicated, especially during the energy transition. Navigating the process can be confusing, expensive, and difficult to manage. AMP's diversified contract power generation fleet delivers fully managed power with mobile assets ranging from 35 megawatts through 2.5 megawatts, with the objective to provide a utility-like experience. Others call their service leased power or rental power. AMP refers to our service as turnkey contract power. If your organization is in need of temporary or long-term mobile generation for completions, drilling, production, compression, or in-field electrification projects, look no further. Our team is here to deliver excellence. Innovative power delivered so you can focus on business. Contact our team today to learn more. Let's talk power and get amped.
Welcome to the Energy Espresso. My name is Dave Bosco, and this week we are at EnQuest Energy Solutions with Jamie Stewart. Jamie, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on the Energy Espresso podcast.
Appreciate you coming on, buddy. So what we're going to be doing today is the Upright Studios are in the process of moving. So we're mobile today, folks. And what we're going to be trying to get the conversation energized is a Carajillo. And this is kind of a little different take. It's using a nitro cold brew coffee with the, Liqueur 43. And why don't we give it a shot, Jamie, and get the conversation energized.
No pun intended.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Tastes better than a Carajillo that you would normally have at a restaurant.
I got a pretty good cocktail making recipe here. I'm gonna have to share it with you.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, awesome. So, Jamie, I wanted to start out with kind of finding out from you a little bit about your personal journey, because I think it's important, laying the foundation to kind of understand what got you here today at EnQuest and running this business. Can you unpack for me where you started out, kind of some of the back history of yourself, how you got into this business, and kind of take it from there?
Sure. So going back a long way, my family's legacy is Stewart and Stevenson. It was a 106-year-old company-ish when it finally sold. Still does business today, but not under any ownership of any Stewarts or Stevensons. But going back to college, I kind of, took a while for me to come around and realize that I had such a great legacy, place to go to work. I just needed to embrace it and not think that maybe I was going to be a Wall Street guy or a commercial real estate guy, that I really needed to be the next generation of Stewart and Stevenson. So in 97, graduated from college, joined Stewart and Stevenson in the petroleum equipment division back then. And we started out in those days, we were building fracturing equipment and coiled tubing equipment for both domestic and international customers. So I started off in this business brand spanking new. I didn't know really a whole lot about it. I knew the legacy of my family and the business, but I didn't know oil field equipment and what made it work. And a couple of guys took me under their wing and really showed me, how to be successful, how the equipment worked, why people bought what we were building. And really set me on a good path. Of course, I worked there for about 13 years, and then the entrepreneurial itch got me. It got me pretty good, and I started trying to figure out what would be next. And I actually resigned at Stewart Stevenson before I had my next opportunity. And that was a big move because my wife was like, "You're going to do what?" And I said, "Yes, honey, I'm going to resign and I'm going to figure out what's next." I had my dad and my brother, they were building a company out of Supreme Electrical Service, and there was an opportunity to go work with them, but I really wanted to do something on my own and make my own way and provide my own stamp to it. So we went and had a great opportunity to potentially build some equipment. There was a lot of growth. This was 2010, 11. There was tons of growth in fracturing equipment.
It was just taking off.
It was taking off. You'd come right out of the financial crisis, and the financial crisis was a very short period in oil and gas terms for people in other in the banking industry and other industries. It was a lot longer and more protracted. But in oil and gas, we came out real quick in 2010, and I was able to capitalize on that. And so started a company called Surefire. We operated Surefire, and we went to the moon. It was a great start to the company. But no sooner did we get to the moon than cyclicality of the oil and gas industry started to hit. And gas prices, natural gas prices, that is, corrected. And that caused some of our customers to start wanting to retrade their equipment contracts and what they were going to buy and maybe delay. And we weren't really ready for something like that. So we brought in some private equity to help cure those growing pains. And then we started growing again in 2014. No sooner did we start growing in 2014 than oil prices collapsed, causing a little bit of a double whammy. And we operated with limited capital from 14 to 16 before we came upon the only decision that we could make at that time, which was to liquidate. So we liquidated Surefire, and it was only a couple of months after we did that, and I was hanging my head and really wondering what I was going to do next, that our investors, Mark Williamson and Larry Lindholm, called me and asked me what I was doing and if I'd like to do it again, and could I do it with them. And so obviously we're here at EnQuest now, and Mark and Larry are still the two investors that we have that financially support the company. I run the company for them. It's we started it in the same fashion as the businesses that I'd worked within at Stewart Stevenson and Surefire. A big oil and gas bent to it, upstream completions equipment. There's more of a rebuild market now than there ever was, so we've really enjoyed a lot of rebuilding activity. But the thing that's really propelling us forward is the electrification of the industry, not just the pumping equipment, but the power generation equipment, as you well know, is really what excites me and gets me out of bed every day, makes me want to go to work.
Jamie, I almost see that transition, kind of unpacking what you said before. You look at that kind of 2008 to 2014 timeframe. That was once in a lifetime build cycle that many people never get to see that happen. And it was so short lived, but it was pretty good times when it happened. And I almost feel like, right now we're going into a similar type of business cycle, but it's got a lot more legs to it because the sustainability of the power generation solutions, the betterment of designs for electric frac equipment. You've got HSE benefits where it's safer, less people need to be on location. Noise is not as big of a problem anymore. You've got the automation pieces. How do you see EnQuest fitting into this larger strategy of oil and gas electrification? Are you trying to sell folks a complete solution, or is it more ad hoc as what they need different pieces to put that together?
Well, the ultimate goal is a strategic solution, but we have to build products first, and until we have the product portfolio built out well enough to address a total solution like we look to do in the future, we have to build ad hoc. And so we kind of cover it in three different ways at EnQuest. The first is we've transitioned our diesel and dual fuel equipment over to electric powered equipment. So our fracturing equipment's gone from 100% diesel to 50 to 70% gas to now 100% gas. That has led us into power generation, because in order to power your electric frac, you need clean power, and there's a huge call on power for electric fracturing right now.
Yep.
And so a great opportunity to add additional products and product lines to EnQuest. So we're really excited about the power side of the business. And then the third leg to the stool is natural gas fueling. Through a relationship we have with one of our great clients, we have built out their natural gas fueling business for them. They operate, maintain, service their customers, both internal and external. We're just a builder for them, but it gave us exposure to natural gas as a fuel and what needs to happen to the gas before it can be effectively used by a generator or some other gas-consuming engine.
Makes sense. And that's a critical part of a strategy, right? Because making the generator or, integrating that is one piece, but having that complete solution to be able to take field gas, for example, condition that, make sure it's correct from a temperature constituent standpoint to go into the generator so that you're not introducing liquids and things that might hurt the engine. I see that continuing to be a big piece that a lot of folks are, that, in your position, integrating equipment, manufacturer, they're leaving some kind of critical pieces out of there, right? And they're just saying, hey, we offer this one widget, but unless you're able to provide, much like diesel, right? A complete solution to deliver that to the pump, have filtration on board, things of that sort. That's pretty cool you guys are getting into that. What are you seeing as the biggest market dynamic for you all when it comes to let's say you got an E&P that's looking to electrify their frac operations? Do you have E&Ps that are coming to you and saying, Jamie, what do you guys have that we can bake into an RFP? Or is it more the service company is coming and saying, hey, we don't have an electric frac strategy, A, or B, we've tried equipment out, it hasn't worked, and we're looking for something that does X, Y, Z?
We get a little bit of both. The E&Ps, most of the time it's just them wanting to get smarter about what solutions are available. They hear about the one solution that their frac provider can provide, but they want to know what else is out there and educate themselves on what else is out there in the market for them. We've also seen E&Ps consider, okay, well, we're making this huge transition. There's a giant capital need. I'm being asked to enter into these long-term contracts in order for them to justify building new equipment. So how do I maybe jump the line and do it ourselves? So we've had a few of those conversations that naturally happen when you've got this kind of disruption going on in the industry. And then, of course, we have our customers that, I don't believe that there's a perfect solution yet for electric frac. There's a bunch of different ways to go about it, and you see that by all the different fracturing equipment, electric fracturing equipment operators that are out there. I mean, it doesn't seem that any two solutions are the same. And so we see that as an opportunity for us to continue to innovate and figure out, where might the best widget come from, and we hope that one day people will say the best one comes from EnQuest.
That's awesome, man. What are you seeing in the development of direct drive technology, whether it's a gas turbine, so you've got like, smaller gas turbine, call it 3.6 megawatts, 4 megawatts, directly coupled to drive shaft. Maybe there's an intermediary gearbox, so you can adjust some rate and, pressures based upon what you're trying to do downhole. Do you see that as being a technology, again, whether it's a turbine or a gas recip engine connected to a transmission, that y'all are looking at? And is there a way that when a customer says, hey, I maybe am drinking a certain juice where I think one's better than the other, do you just offer them like that solution, or do you go through a process, say, you know what, based upon your feedback, we think this may be a better option to go for, i.e. electrification? Or kind of unpack that for me.
So on the direct drive, you've got, like you said, the turbine direct drive solution that's out there. And then one that's on the come right now is you've got the reciprocating gas engine direct driven solutions. We're going to be able to provide any solution that a customer wants. We've built direct drive turbine. We will, as soon as our clients get their engines, and ultimately we'll get engines, we'll build some direct drive recip pumps as well.
Okay.
I think the world is still going to be an all of the above solution. There's not going to be one perfect solution for every application, every basin.
Sure.
So we're gonna ask naturally the question, like, tell us about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what makes most sense. There's obviously a real huge benefit to these direct drive solutions. You don't have to have power generation in order to drive them. They generate their own power to drive the pump. And so that cuts out a huge capital expense in terms of funding the power generation or leasing the power in order to power your frac fleet. So I think that there's a lot of exciting things happening on the direct drive side, but turbine will work in some applications, and these direct drive recip gas engines will work in other situations. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be e-frac killers. I think e-frac will have its own place at the table, and then there's always going to be people that still prefer their dual fuel solution, and maybe even some that prefer a all diesel tier 2 solution just because it's the least expensive option out there.
Totally. I think I would totally agree. There's enough space in the market for a plethora of technologies, to say the least. And until, in all fairness, there's more adoption of more technology and the opportunity to flush out, what is best from a total cost ownership perspective, right? Because you got some really smart folks that work for you, right? And they could probably come up with, analysis for days that shows, hey, you've got benefits over here in this quadrant, but there's some risk over here in this side. Like with electrification, I'm a huge believer in electrification, obviously. However, there's a core competency that goes along with that, and understanding of multiple subsystems, and there's a very different approach versus somebody dipping their toe, for lack of a better term, into going 100% gas. It allows them to kind of get that exposure from a cost perspective. They're able to build that economic foundation on saving because they're using field gas, for example, and then transition into other technologies that maybe offer more efficiency in the future. Is the efficiency piece something that you guys talk a lot with customers about when they're picking these solutions?
It is efficiency from a different perspective. Our customers, all they're looking for is efficiencies in every way possible in order to, lower their costs and still make a return that's acceptable to their shareholders. We're looking at efficiencies in a different way. Like when people are talking about, do I do simul-frac or trimul-frac?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Really what it means to us, to a manufacturer, is just the utilization of that equipment on site and how much equipment, how much intensity you're putting to that pump, how quickly you're wearing it out. So if there's one thing that we can do is we can build things that, from a lower total cost of ownership, things that last, things that are reliable. I think the last thing that needs still some real work, and something that's needed work for a long time, is the power and fluid end. Electric motors are now taking, what was a diesel engine was a 10,000 hour, 15,000 hour engine to overhaul. Now you're getting, 20, 30, 40,000 hours to overhaul, many times the life of a diesel engine. Well, the pumps have never made that kind of a jump. They've gone from, a couple thousand hours to maybe 4,000 to 6,000 hours in a power end, but they're nowhere near, a useful life of an electric motor. So got to keep making headway on the pumps themselves.
No, I totally agree. It's insane. If my father-in-law is who kind of taught me this business, and going back and having conversations with him when he's in town. He's retired now, but he always told me, he's like, son, he calls me son. back in my day, you look at a pump, whether it's a PAH or could be an HT 400 old Halliburton style pump. There's nothing that has literally changed between the 50s, 60s and today, except maybe bearing material, where you maybe get a little bit more life. Some of the metals that may be used inside of that, we've gone from carbon on a fluid end to stainless steel, but that is still the weakest link and the highest cost driver, right? For any, completions operation. I'm really interested to see what the future holds, to say the least, for us in that space. Because I just feel like the advancements that we have had in this other technology have yielded unbelievable results, from efficiency, capital discipline, frac companies actually being like a quality investment grade business, right? Again, exactly. Because, beforehand it just was the mentality that, I saw in the oil field of yore was run it till it fails. Right. And I think everybody realized, like, that's probably not a good idea.
And run it till it fails means, maybe you run it for a year. Because that's you're putting 6,000 to 8,000 hours. There's only eight something thousand hours in a year.
That's right.
And if you're north of 6, you're pretty much talking about 1 year of operation till it should fail.
That's right. Outside of the frac space, so you guys are pretty much oil and gas focused, right? What are you seeing outside the frac space that EnQuest is working on for development of new solutions, areas that you see as growth opportunities for your business in the future? I've been seeing some things that y'all have done around, like battery energy storage, for example. Is that something you could talk about?
Sure. So oil and gas, near and dear to my heart, our investors' heart, our entire team's heart. We're going to continue to service our oil and gas customers with the latest and greatest in technology, hopefully the lowest cost of ownership. And so, we're never going to abandon that business. But one of the things that I'm most excited about are all these grid resiliency and data center and other applications for power than pure electric frac. What's driving our power business today is a lot of demand from e-frac. And I see that changing, that transitioning from where it's mostly e-frac today to being a healthy mix between maybe industrial power applications to oil and gas applications and everything in between. So from a power perspective, we're seeing a lot of RFPs. These are early stage things, but in greater quantity, greater volume and mass, which really helps us. We've got a very big facility here in Houston, and another one in Canada that we need to keep full. So these RFPs for these power generation opportunities outside of oil and gas look really, really attractive. And then there's battery energy storage. Battery storage is something that we've been working on now since 2019 almost, I think. So we're coming up on 5 years. Hasn't gone as quickly and as impactfully as we thought it would. Reason being is that there's still a huge amount of content that comes from Asia.
Yes.
And we have not, even with the tariffs and things like that and credits, ITC and PTC credits, we haven't seen a tremendous shift yet from battery supply, chemistry supply out of China and Korea to the United States. And to the extent that there is some reshoring of that industry to the United States, because this is probably one of the largest battery consuming countries in the world, we should benefit from that because we have a ton of experience. Even with the limited amount of experience that we've got, we have a ton of experience with battery enclosures and making batteries last. We bring a lot to the table, and I know our time is coming. We just got to wait until there's more incentive for people to buy American.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's been a really, unfortunately, in the battery system market, from my experience, has been highly saturated. The Chinese market, they essentially are buying market share as much as possible. Same thing happened with solar, right? We innovated a lot of solar technology, and technologies in general get developed here in the United States, Europe as well. And you end up having these companies that you farm things out to because you need to get that massive scale. And we've over-leveraged ourselves to the Asian market, specifically China, which has put them in a position to kind of control things. I do see and agree with you that with more of that content being established here in the United States, that is going to make people have access to, I think, better quality solutions, where some of that quality has been an issue with battery systems. But I also feel like, kind of the buy American mentality, you got to be willing to step up to the plate and say, you know what, I'm supporting American jobs, and I'm okay with paying 30% more because I know that's my neighbor that puts that thing together, right? He's got a family, he's got an employer that has got 500, so odd people that are employed by that business. I think we got to do our duty as Americans to, buy here and be willing to pay a little bit more because it comes with many other things besides price tag.
That's right. I'm a huge proponent, obviously, of Buy American. The issue is that it is still so inexpensive to bring in a prepackaged solution from China and just kind of connect things together in blocks, and away you go. These power contracts, they're negotiated by utilities, and the utilities are passing through that cost to the consumer. The consumer's got a say in this thing too. They don't want their prices for power to go up, 10x, from one month to the next. They want to see, no power increase. They want to see their power decrease.
Absolutely.
Because we've got, a surplus of it, but that hasn't been the case. And so, with the consumer in mind, price is, they're very, very sensitive to price increases. And when you can buy it so cheap out of Asia, it's hard for us to compete.
No, it's fair. One thing I wanted to touch on was, going back to the oil and gas market. Something that I've been seeing kind of unfold for the past couple of years, and I've always been, think about thought leadership. You look at the mining business, you look at aviation. Where do you see oil and gas kind of going in the future? Do you see it following that mining business model or the aviation model from here on out? Do you think that we've kind of hit a inflection point where we're not, granddad's oil and gas operations that, essentially, we were willing to do things at a higher cost, didn't care so much about total cost of ownership, didn't really, in most cases, know down to the, right at the decimal point exactly what production and the yield from a dollar standpoint was that day? Oh, it's a loaded question, but...
Yeah, so, we're obviously transitioning as an industry. I have no doubt that the days of overspending and drill, baby, drill, and build, baby, build, those days are gone. There's, it's very returns focused now. Everybody's talking about capital discipline in their earnings calls. They're talking about how they're going to distribute 50% of free cash flow to their investors and their shareholders. That's here to stay, and that's the only way we get back to being an investable grade industry again is to continue to do that and not overspend or over drill or overproduce. That all leads to the cycles that we've seen in the past that have been so damaging for our industry, and we just can't keep doing that anymore. So we do have to become more cost efficient, and I think we're getting there. We're going to hit record. We're already at record production. We might crest 14 million barrels a day or whatever it is.
It's phenomenal
in the U.S. And we just lost. I think it was closer to 800 rigs a couple of years ago. Now we're down to closer to 600 rigs. So we're doing all this with less, and that's amazing. And I don't know where that ends, where that efficiency ends, but at some point you've got to feel like the end of efficiency is here.
There's only so much juice you can get out of the squeeze, right?
That's right.
And it's interesting, kind of along that same parallel, you see the efficiency gains. It's almost like, oil and gas now has gone to this kind of manufactured process, right? Where they stage out the ducts, right? And right behind that drilling rig, you've got frac crews, you've got electrical lines being built out. The process kind of focus to be able to get that production online in as short as time as possible without hitting, especially in shale, depletion rates are real. They happen. I've been pretty amazed over the past couple of years with, to your point, the amount of rigs when I started in my career, going on 19 years ago, I think the rig count was like something crazy like 1,800, 2,000 rigs, right? It was nuts. They're all mechanical. You had a bunch of OIME compound drilling rigs still. Everything's gone electric. It's really, really neat to see within a short, I call 20 years short time frame. Maybe I need to reset myself here.
It's a generation.
It is a generation. It's pretty cool though to watch all of this unfold.
Yeah.
Seeing these efficiency gains, Jamie, do you see areas that y'all are looking at where we can still apply technology in oil and gas to other solutions, i.e. geothermal, for example? Is that something you guys have your eyes on as a future market?
I'll be honest, we don't have any eyes on geothermal right now. We've looked at some other areas to try to see if our skill sets and our facilities and our floor space would lend some sort of value to. But so far we find it very difficult to find the same kind of value in a product or a service that matches power or frac. There's been a real, we feel like batteries, that product as well. But we're just finding it hard to be competitive, against some of these Asian companies like I was talking about before. But no, so far we're, power and where power can take us, I think, and where battery can take us, that's really our, entree into other verticals.
I love it. Shifting gears a little bit, partnerships. How important is that in your business, not only with an end customer or somebody that's buying your equipment, i.e. a frac company, to also vendors? Is that something you could talk to me about?
Sure. Partnerships are a huge part of what we do. We cannot do this alone. We rely on our vendors, our partner vendors, the ones that we definitely consider partners, or guys that are willing to, work with us, to forecast with us, to hold material maybe on their shelves, and we hold some of the material on our shelves. So having a vendor partner like that is what we're searching for every day. And we have a few of those guys that really understand the industry, understand how the mechanics work, understand the ups and the downs, and we survive with each other rather than just be beholden to them if something goes awry for a period of time. And then obviously our customer partners are huge. Knowing what their plans are in advance of them executing on those plans, that's hugely important to having a stable business. If you're just project to project and you're guessing as to what so-and-so is going to do and what so-and-so is going to do without any advanced knowledge, it's no way to try to run a business. You want to run a business where you have visibility and knowledge and understanding of where your customer's trying to go and try to match that.
Got it. What are some of the challenges you were seeing in attracting the right talent? Is that something that's been something you've had to overcome here lately, or are you still able to attract the right talent? I'm not only talking from an engineering perspective, business development, really where I've seen the biggest weakness is folks actually putting together equipment. You don't have a generation of young men and women that maybe want to get out there and get their hands dirty. Is that something that's given you some heartache right now, or have you been able to attract the talent you need to go ahead and build equipment?
I'll start off with the Houston market. Houston is a great place to do what we do. There is 4 to 6 million people on any given day within the city of Houston. Most of those want a job, and there are plenty of people looking for mechanical assembly jobs, electrical technician jobs, painters, blasters, welders, fitters. We really don't have a hard time finding high quality people here in Houston. But I would also have to give credit to the Stewart and Stevenson background that I have. Have a lot of people who I've worked with in the past that have come, followed me to wherever I have been in my future, and a lot of those people are here. And I'm a firm believer that good people follow good people.
Yeah.
So if I can attract some good people, they'll attract more good people, and it just feeds on itself. And so we don't find it tremendously difficult to find good, high quality, talented people. It's on the margins, when we've got to grow, maybe a little bit more rapidly than we'd like to in order to address a need that we've got to grow to. And it's those times where we start getting some people that we may have to, find a few, kiss a few frogs to find the prince, if you will. So we'll do that from time to time. That's when it becomes more challenging. But eventually we'll weed through the ones that want to work and are really good and have a great set of skills that fit our skill sets, and we'll hire those people.
Got it. I like that you touched on kind of the next idea from a topic perspective that I had was management style, right? Like, you're a leader of a company. You've got a group of folks that have been, in your words, following you as you've traveled throughout your career to different ventures. How does Jamie manage folks on a daily basis and, gain that loyalty, for lack of a better term, of people that are willing to follow you and kind of go into battle every day?
So I am the opposite of a micromanager. I am a guy who empowers the people. I give them a culture, I give them an example of how to lead, but they do their own leadership. They have to bring that to the table, and they have to, do it in the same vein, in the same culture, with the same values that we have here at EnQuest. So, having good leaders and letting them lead and do their jobs, if I can't count on them to do their jobs, then obviously they're not a good fit for EnQuest. So I feel like we've found a bunch of people, a great group of people. The nucleus of the folks that are here are great folks and great leaders, and I don't have to tell them what to do. They, in most cases, know better than me what to do.
That's awesome. Got to surround yourself with strong people to where it's tough to figure out who the leaders are, right? Because you're all leaders.
That's right. I totally agree with that.
No, that's fantastic. Shifting gears again to, back to personal life. So something I want to find out is kind of what gets you out of bed every single morning, come to work? What's your driver?
Wins. Oh my gosh, there's nothing like a win. When we close a big deal with a customer and we start that engine, from an engineering perspective, start the kickoff meetings and start ideating on paper if it requires that. Those are the kinds of things that really get me up in the morning, remembering what it's like to win.
Yeah.
And wanting that next one.
And you guys celebrate the wins, I hope.
We celebrate the wins, yeah.
You got to.
We have a good time at EnQuest. I mean, we participate in all the industry activities out there. I think people have joined us in our celebrations at times, and so we certainly celebrate the wins.
Yeah, you guys had an awesome tent at the barbecue cook-off.
That's what I hear.
It was quite the setup.
That's what I hear. Thank you.
That's awesome. Is the business something you try and get your kids involved in and give them some exposure to business? Because you had very early exposure as a young man, I would presume. That's something I had exposure with my family as well. Different industry, but kind of was taught very early a specific work ethic around business. Is that something you're passing on to your kids as well?
Absolutely. They both had the tour, multiple tours. From the Surefire days to the now EnQuest days. They've been to the factory, they ask questions, they want to learn, they want to understand what is oil and gas, not just what they're reading about in a textbook or being told from their teacher. Yep. So, it's more about opening their eyes and trying to make sure that they're getting both sides of the argument about how fossil fuels, drive our world and are necessary, despite a need to transition some of that over to renewable. I'm all for that, but I want my kids to know, how we have benefited from fossil fuels. So, really spent a lot of time there. But in the grand scheme of things, at almost 15 and 11 years old, they're not quite ready for this is what Dad does and this is why, and I hope that they might somehow find their way into the industry. I'll let them decide what it is they want to do. Right now we've got a burgeoning fashion designer, and I'm not sure what the other one wants to be yet, but anyway, so I'm not going to squash any dreams, but continue to keep them educated on what it is we do and why we do it.
That's awesome, man. That's something that I think is really important for the younger generations. There's a huge amount of influence on social media, the media outlets in general, right? Where we get painted with these broad strokes in oil and gas, that we're a dirty business, we don't care about the environment. And, I've been to API meetings and spoke at a couple and was like, look, guys, I think we got it wrong. We actually produce oil and gas outside of maybe Norway, a couple, countries that are over there in that part of the world. We produce oil and gas pretty damn efficiently here, pretty clean. This problem that, flaring is a big issue. It's not a big issue. What do you think we can do as an industry to better control the narrative, for lack of a better term, Jamie?
Well, communication, first and foremost. We need more Chris Wrights or Toby Rices speaking on behalf of our industry. I would love to be one of those speakers. I just don't have the platform yet, at least in my opinion. Don't have the platform yet to speak on the level that guys like that can speak on. But we need more people like that who are advocates, that are willing to point out the facts and look at the benefits of what this industry does for humanity, not just the things that might be a negative. There's trade-offs with every solution out there.
Yeah.
I mean, wind turbines. Now you're seeing the articles about the blight of a turbine and how imposing it is on the landscape, and how the blades aren't necessarily recyclable, or they need a huge landfill in order to get rid of the blades. The blades are, they have a useful life, just like some of the stuff that we build.
There's still carbon that goes into making those.
Exactly. Still hugely energy intensive.
Very much so.
In order to make that stuff. And where's that going to come from? So, you can pick your renewable preference, but they all have their detractors to it. I mean, if you want to go figure out how a battery's made, you'd probably think twice about replacing all your fossil fuel power generation equipment with batteries, because batteries, that lithium mining process and the other chemicals and things that need to come together in order to make a battery. Pretty nasty stuff.
It is. You have to leach out
That's
materials.
right, and it's done at surface usually, which is exposed to everything else. And oil and gas, at least, we're going down 2 miles and out 2 miles. We're bringing it to the surface, but the exposure to the surface is very minimal.
Yeah.
But I'm all for being a better steward of our environment. That's one of our core values here at EnQuest, is leave it better than we found it. And I certainly want to do that, and I want to figure out ways, and we always do try to figure out ways to be better at what we do. We've transitioned from mostly diesel as a fuel for the equipment we build to mostly natural gas as a fuel for the equipment we build, and that has emissions impacts and positive emissions impacts. And then we've helped with quiet projects, trying to get this equipment down from 100 decibels to, something that you and I can sit here and have a chat, and it's still running right next to you.
And that's a stealth product,
that
if I'm
was
not
a stealth
mistaken,
product.
right?
So we've looked at all kinds of ways to try to help our industry do a better job of being a steward of the environment, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is I think from an influencer perspective or a positive advocate for the industry, I don't think everybody needs to be loud, right? And talk about things that aren't actually being materialized in today's day and age. I think being humble and kind sometimes and talking about the simple things that we're doing is actually refreshing to many people, because they can relate to that a little bit more easily. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree. There's just, when I see these protesters, they're usually speaking very loudly. They're usually screaming through a bullhorn, whatever they're saying, and usually it's filled with expletives. But I know we need some loud voices to go along with those humble and kind voices, because the other side is extremely loud.
They are. I'm not sure they're saying much except just being loud, but we'll leave it to them.
You and I are on the same side there.
1000%. So something that we didn't get to touch on early is what's your usual routine in the morning from a coffee perspective? Do you have a specific cup that you like, or what's Jamie's routine?
Yeah, so I'll take it one step further. So my wife, Natalie, bought me a Jura Capresso automated coffee machine. This is like 20 years ago, and we're on our second generation of that coffee machine, and it's got even more bells and whistles and features right at your touch. And so I make that homemade brew, and we use really good beans, high quality beans, no chemicals, no totally organic, all that stuff. But I think the key to my coffee in the morning is homemade almond milk. And so my cousin, she introduced me to the idea that you could actually make almond milk at home. Didn't realize, obviously I didn't think almonds, just made milk on their own. So there's a process you got to go through.
Yeah.
So I figured that all out, and she kind of gave me a recipe, and I've now been making homemade almond milk by the gallon about once a week, every week for that's probably been ongoing for about 15 years.
Really?
So my wife, the reason she stays married to me is because she knows that the gallon of homemade fresh almond milk is going to be there at the beginning of every week.
That's pretty cool. So you've been an almond milk drinker for a minute.
That's right.
You're not on the trend.
I'm not on the trend.
You actually set the trend.
We make our own, and we flavor it with vanilla, like you could get in the store.
Yeah.
The only issue is it doesn't have a shelf life, because there's no preservatives or anything in it, so it's real nice and healthy compared to the preservative based ones that you find in the grocery store. It's just a little bit of a process. It takes about 30 minutes, once a week.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And those Jura coffee machines, I'm telling you, that is like the Ferrari. The high pressure, I can't remember how many bar it is, measuring it in European metric standards, but just that cream that you almost get on the top of that cup, it almost looks like it's got creamer in it at a certain point. It's just, it's another level. You've not tried a Jura cup of coffee, folks, like you've not lived yet. It's amazing.
We have really enjoyed it, gotten a ton of use out of it. Starbucks still gets my business every now and then because I can't take it with me when I travel because it's too big. But it is a fantastic machine. And they've, like I said, I think the first one she gave me 18, almost 20 years ago. And we're on our second one, and we use it every day, multiple times a day.
There's actually a guy in the Woodlands who rebuilds them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if you've used him before. He's got a pretty good setup that he actually even has an exchange program. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they're pretty phenomenal machine.
I built my first, or rebuilt my first machine a couple times.
Really?
Before we traded it in for the new model. But we haven't rebuilt the new model, and it's been some time now. So it's probably coming up on at least some maintenance, other than the maintenance that they make you do automatically.
Yeah. That's pretty neat. Two more questions. Mm-hmm. One, what advice would you give to a young man or woman wanting to start out, pick their career, they're considering oil and gas? What's different about today versus their perceptions, kind of going back to that with people having a perception of oil and gas and may not be in this business, to get them to come into this business and give it a shot?
We do a ton of really exciting things. I think a lot of what excited me about this industry is how we were never concerned about trying something if we thought it might work. There's a lot of tinkering that goes on in oil and gas, and it's resulted in a far more robust industry. When we thought it was dying in the late 2000s to now being the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. That's exciting. This is an industry that's not going anywhere. Another thing that we've got to try to remind people is, despite some people's desires to just get rid of fossil fuels, you will never ever get rid of fossil fuels completely. There's just not enough synthetics out there made from something other than oil and gas products in order to sustain normal life. And our population in the world is only growing. So the need for those products is going to continue to grow, and you're going to have to find substitutes for all of these building blocks, for all of these things that we make every day that impact our lives. There's Chevron or somebody's been doing a series of ads trying to, show people what they'd be missing if they got rid of oil and gas. I think those are really powerful. We need more of those.
Yep.
But really just, telling people about all the good things we do. Young people, because I do think young people are mostly scared of our industry because they think it is time-based, that at some point this is going to be all over and I'm going to have to look for another job, when that's really not realistic, not the case. Can we do a better job of communicating, how we're addressing some of the concerns that people have? Yes, absolutely we can. But I would tell young people, to make your own decision. Don't just listen and try to make a judgment off of listening. Go do your own research. Read books. Understand what it is this industry does and how it betters human lives, as Liberty says, and I believe.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Very cool. One, I want to give you the opportunity to have, I don't want to call it a shameless plug, but is there a charity or something you have a passion for that you want to share that really drives you, or you have a strong passion for? Again, could be a charity or something like that, whatever you want to share.
Tough question to end on. What do I have a passion for? I'm going to go back to, frankly, bettering human lives, and I really, truly, without sounding redundant, I just want people to understand how important oil and gas and the products that come from those are to not just empowering people in the West, but what people in the rest of the world are going to need. The not so lucky 7 billion people that live on the planet that don't have 24/7 access to power, electricity, clean water, fuel for cooking. I'm very passionate about trying to keep that message in the forefront of people's minds, and shutting down this idea that somehow we're going to be able to rid ourselves of fossil fuels one day. I don't know where it got such a negative connotation. I mean, I look at all these other solutions out there, from battery, and we're playing in it. Wind, we're not playing in it. Solar, we're really not playing in it. But how those things are going to adequately replace all of the products that come from oil and gas, that's just impossible.
Yeah.
I wish people would stop talking about that.
Spend some time in Europe and other countries. I had the pleasure of traveling in for business or pleasure. They have to sacrifice a lot. In all fairness, like, you have to be willing to give up some of those creature comforts that I would say we probably could call it a champagne problem, right? But at the end of the day, I think that's where people end up having the rubber hit the road on these topics. Is you can't adjust your air conditioning system in the middle of the summer because there's going to be a blackout, right? Like, I don't like to sweat sitting on my couch.
Yeah, I mean, are you really expecting, Americans and Europeans and let's call it the lucky 1 billion, if you will, to take a step back? Because that's really what you're asking, is for us to take a step backwards in terms of our development in order to meet some climate science goal that may or may not be a valid number. I just think people need to think rationally and for themselves, and to educate themselves, and not get so bent on the rhetoric, the politics surrounding it, and just take it for what it is. And what it is, we have learned how to develop as an economy, as people, as a human race, because of fossil fuels and those benefits. And to try to throw them all away, I think, you're just asking for problems. And people will ultimately put their foot down.
Yeah.
I think that's happening a little bit in electric vehicles right now. Everybody who wants one has got one now. Now you're asking for people who didn't want one to buy one. How well is that really going to go? I don't know. Maybe forcing electric vehicles on the entire population will work someday, but I just don't happen to be a believer in forcing people. People should have freedom of choice.
Yeah.
When it comes to what they buy, and we can just keep doing better and better and better about the emissions coming out of an internal combustion engine, which we've done dramatically over 20 years, 25 years that I've been in this industry.
Totally agree, man. Well, Jamie, it's been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And do me a favor, folks, if you don't follow Jamie on LinkedIn, check him out. And really appreciate you, man. And we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, and follow EnQuest Energy Solutions as well. A great follow. We have good content.
Absolutely.
Shameless plug.
Hey, that's all right. That's what this is about. Thanks for joining, folks. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Awesome
Appreciate
conversation, Jamie. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.